All right. Hey there. Welcome back to the Awesome Life podcast. I'm Karen Stultz, your host, and I am here with the most amazing lady today, Julie Jones. Julie Jones is an award-winning international speaker, international best-selling author of the book Stop Waiting and Start Living. And that's what the Awesome Life podcast is all about, right? And she's an intuitive coach with a great podcast platform called Get Shit Done platform. I love it. That's what we all want when we're in this business. She's a master connector of people who is passionate about supporting the purpose-driven entrepreneurs to live their best life now without regret. And in the past 15 years, Julie has influenced thousands of people around the world to achieve their passions, get comfortable taking risks, and in their pursuit of being a better person and enjoying a better quality of life. And isn't that what this is all about? Having an awesome life is enjoying what you're doing. And Julie and I are good friends and colleagues as well. I love hanging out with her. And wait until you hear her story. Will you share how amazing and you got into the speaking gig? But before that, oh my gosh. So welcome, Julie.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. As we talked about, I love to talk. And my favorite subject, me. So yes, my background, interestingly enough, I started off my career, which is hard to believe, almost 30 years ago. I was a police officer and SWAT team member. I spent 10 years in that career back in Wisconsin. And a little over 20 years ago, I moved to the great state of Arizona. And I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. And it's easy sometimes in life to go back to what I call, like, I could have fallen back in very easily with law enforcement, because that's what I knew. Yet I knew that there was something so much more out there for me, because I love to help and serve people. I just wanted to do it on a much more positive nature. So I've done a multitude of different things, including property management, chiropractic assistant. I've also been a makeup artist, and I'm a googly-eyed aficionado, right? So I love to make people laugh and smile. I probably should have been a comedian at one point in my life, right? But of everything that I love to do, it really goes back to the idea of speaking and coaching people to live in the moment without regrets.
That's what it's all about, and actually that's how I got into it, because I saw my mom dying with regret and a lot of anger. And I said, no, that's not the way to be. It's simply not the way to live life and enjoy life. We all have a beginning, we all have an end. And we want to make sure that at the end, or I do, and I think most people do, want to make sure that they have no regrets about the way they lived their life, the way they enjoyed their awesome life. So you are a wonderful example for sharing how you went from one thing to the next thing, and what inspired you to do all those great things.
Well, it always came down to, really, quite honestly, people. Knowing that I have a gift. I have several gifts. Number one, I'm intuitive, and that doesn't mean I'm psychic. Some people confuse the two, right?
Right.
So I just really listen to my inner guidance. And a lot of times that works with being a former police officer, that I can somewhat read people, knowing when people are lying to themselves and really not being their authentic self. So in that pursuit, I was able to do so many different things. I'm creative and innovative by nature. So I was really just looking for what was going to be the right fit. Like, there were things I knew about myself. I didn't like to be in an office. I didn't really necessarily like the idea of 9 to 5, which is probably what led me to law enforcement to begin with. Being in a patrol car, being able to, set my own patrol routine, all those kinds of things. And I'm here to tell you that law enforcement at that time was a lot of mundane until all hell broke loose. And it usually did all at one time, right? Like there was something happening throughout the entire city. And again, using that creativity as a makeup artist, working and helping people with their health as a chiropractic assistant. Like I've been a big believer that when you have your health, you have everything.
Mhm.
And so making that a priority for people and sharing with people how much the nervous system and the spine plays a role in your overall health. And everything that I did was always, always with the intention of being able to help people. It was just figuring out for me what really resonated with me because I loved everything that I did. It just wasn't enough for me to make that bigger impact. And in and throughout all those entire processes, I was always speaking. And my husband used to say to me when I was in front of a room that I lit up a room. And I love being in front of people because I feed off that energy. I don't have fears of public speaking, which a lot of people do. Like it ranks shortly after death, right? Like you'd rather die than public speak.
Right.
So,
that is the number one fear. Yeah.
so because I don't have that fear, and that's another gift to be able to speak in front of rooms full of people, I just decided to go for it. To really live out loud, as I like to talk about it, be authentic and vulnerable and true to myself, and do what I love best.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. And you do a lot of coaching with people now too, don't you? Besides speaking?
I do. And that is really about helping people to level up, I guess, in their life is the best way to put it. I'm a big believer, which I know you are as well, Karen, and how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So some people may be coming to me for personal coaching, yet it helps them professionally or vice versa. See, like you don't become a separate person in your business entity and then in your personal life. And if you do, then it's really challenging because I did that once. Like the first time I was married, I was one person with him and then one person with everybody else. And it was hard, like to not have that integrity and stand true to who I really was. I was like hiding myself with him versus to what I was doing for the rest of the world. So I learned that doesn't work. Like everything I coach and I talk about is based on, experience. I walk the walk, right?
Yeah.
And so that's it. I'm really about being a blow up the box kind of thinker is what I call it. So I don't even believe in the damn box. Like so many of us, like think about being in the box, and people say, think outside the box. It's like, forget about the box. And let's look at, things from a different perspective. And that's what I'm very good at. Because of that creativity, I'm able to look at a situation and give you a million other suggestions. Have you looked at it like this? Have you thought about this? Have you done this? That most people don't always see because they have their own blinders and perception. And so when you're in it, you don't see it. And having somebody else, to take a look at, it from a different perspective is really what I do. And the accountability, right? Because left up to our own devices, very rarely do we always do it for ourselves, but we're willing to do it for somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that. I think everybody needs that. Don't you, Julie? That everyone needs to have a different perspective to really see. We do kind of get stuck, as you say, with the blinders on. And I know people would get very angry with me because like you, I have to say what I feel. Sometimes I can keep quiet, but I was always like, all right, we're solution-based. It's a solution-based people that we work with and people that we are. So what is the solution? Let's do a devil advocate And I would get people so angry with me because they had the blinders, they knew exactly, and they didn't want to hear any other way of doing things. But you have found a way around that, it sounds like, in helping your clients.
Well, it is. And a lot of it comes, from some humor and getting people to shift. So, emotions help us to shift. Like when you're stuck in a certain way of thinking, and I say something quirky or I throw out something crazy, it all of a sudden, I don't know, it just stops the brain from being in that same set pattern. Hence the reason Get Shit Done coaching, right? Because when I introduce myself, so many people are like, okay, here's somebody else to introduce themselves. And as soon as I say the word shit, it like shifts them like, oh my God, what did she just say? And now all of a sudden they're really paying attention to what I have to say. And for most times, because the brain just goes to automatic habits. 95% of how we operate on a daily basis is habits. Now, are those good habits or are they bad habits? And anytime you want to shift something, it's really putting then a new habit into place. You want to eat healthier? Well, it's like day in and day out, making a conscious decision to do that until it becomes a habit. That's why I think a lot of people struggle sometimes, is that they just haven't quite, they've done it for a week, right? Like 1 week. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this isn't working. What's next? And I find that most people, it takes a good 90 days to establish anything into a solid habit that you're going to continue to do.
Yeah, I've heard it's been 28 days, but I tend to agree. There are people that could actually change their habit almost overnight. I mean, I know people that have said, all right, I'm not going to have any more sugar. That's it. And they have never had any sugar. They stopped drinking. No sugar of any kind. That's not me. But but I can see 90 days does make sense. So being able to have that accountability for at least 3 months is really beneficial, I think.
Well, it is. And everybody's different, right? So like your friend that decided to give up the sugar and stuck with it, like she was really, or he was strong. Like sometimes people rely on willpower, and willpower is only going to get you so far.
Right.
So like today's March 1st, and back on December 27th, I made the decision to stop drinking and stop using alcohol. But I'm so strong in that decision, and I was ready to make that decision for myself, that every day is still a new choice, because I could fall back easily and say, oh, well, one cocktail isn't going to make a difference. But when I make a decision and I to move forward, I make that decision and I'm solid in that decision. Other times, like when I make a decision that I need to start working out, well, that's not always such a solid decision for me, right? However, with that, it's like having that accountability and then implementing it so that it becomes part of a habit. Yeah. And there is no right or wrong, good or bad. Like we're all going to sometimes fall off the horse, and you just, brush yourself off, and you get back on and you figure it out. Part of the problem sometimes is that people attempt to do too much all at once, right? You ever gone to a seminar, a 3-day seminar, right? You're all motivated. You've got all this great information. You come back and you attempt to implement everything you just learned. And maybe you do it for a day or two, or maybe even you get to a week, and then it's so overwhelming and you're so taxed that you just say, forget it. It's like, I always tell people, take one thing out of that seminar that you want to implement, and implement it then for the next 90 days. And then you can implement something else. It's not as overwhelming to the brain. A lot of times, that's why I think, and I don't believe in resolutions, but I think a lot of people with resolutions, January 1st hits, right? Okay, we're going to give up the sugar. We're going to eat better. We're going to start working out at the gym every single day. We're going to drink more water. We're going to do, 20 things on our list. And by January 5th, like everybody's resolutions are out the window because it was too much to attempt to do all at once. Pick
Right.
one thing and implement it and then see where it goes from there.
Yeah. See the results that are occurring. But having that accountability and having the resources to be able to do that. Now, in my world, and it gets to be almost too much for our little bodies and minds and whatnot to deal with. So being able to make that decision to implement over 90 days, what are your thoughts about releasing something else that might be blocking you from keeping that accountability for yourself going?
Well, it is. I mean, for all of us, it's looking at what is stopping you. For a lot of people, it's fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't know what it looks like in the future, and they second guess what their decision is. So
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things that block us because it's really our subconscious that's operating us. Like we consciously know that we want to eat healthy, but like if our subconscious is telling us to go get that ice cream out of the refrigerator and that's our default. Like I grew up, and the reason I say this is I grew up and we would eat dinner at like 4:30 every night because my dad would come home from work. He would cook. He was the cook in our family. And then we would eat an early dinner. Well, by 7:30, 8 o'clock, you're kind of hungry again. So it would either be a bowl of ice cream, he would make popcorn, that kind of thing. So that was such an ingrained habit that our family developed that as you grow up, it's just very automatic nature that when dinner's over at some point in the night that you're going to have a bowl of ice cream. So like if you want to change that, you just have to look at the behavior and release what it is. I mean, for some people, it could be comfort. For some people, it was like, it just brings you back family memories, good or bad, whatever it is. And, working with somebody to say, okay, what is stopping me from making, maybe better choices? And then eventually, okay, well, maybe you just go to 3 times a week that you're having the ice cream, and until eventually you're not having the ice cream every night and you're having the ice cream when you choose to have it, not that you're doing it every night because it's a habit.
Yeah. Creating that mindset, creating the mindset that it's all about having a choice. Do you think people actually do have a choice in their decisions?
Every single day. See, like I always say that my life is not all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. It's one of my favorite sayings because sometimes people listen to me or they say, okay, well, Julie has this Pollyanna look or like this Pollyanna outlook, rose-colored glasses, right? And that's not the case. And I have a positive mindset because I choose to have a positive mindset. Like I've had a lot of tragedy happen in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
Just recently in November, we were at a wedding. My husband had a seizure and he actually died. He actually died at the wedding and he was brought back and he spent 5 days in the hospital. And during that moment, there was a lot of things that were coming at me. And I continued to choose like how I was going to look at this. In the time, like when I was in it, it was tough. It was like a really tough, place to be. However, as I started to continue to move forward, one day at a time, like making that choice of how I wanted to look at things. Like I always talk about like, so that's like the extreme, but like, let's just say, Karen, that you go out to your car right now and you find that you have a flat tire. Okay, yes, it's an inconvenience. Maybe you call AAA, maybe you got to change it yourself, whatever the situation is. Well, now as you proceed with your day, was that a bad moment? Or does that set the tone for the rest of the day to say it's a bad day? Because if you decide it was a bad moment, the rest of your day could be amazing. If you decide at that point it's a bad day, every negative thing is going to come your way. I mean, not only are you going to have that flat tire, but there's probably going to be a whole slew of other things that are going to be negative that you're going to be kicking yourself and be so glad that you're going to bed that night because you chose that it was going to be a bad day.
Yeah. It's how you see things. It's how you appreciate things or not appreciate things. Indeedy, that you can create that bad day any day at all, and you have a choice as long as you take responsibility for the choice that you have.
Absolutely. And with that whole situation with my husband, that happened the beginning of November, and I was releasing my book on November 17th.
Oh, wow.
And so my publisher came to me, I told her what was happening, and she said, well, do you want to postpone? Now, the name of my book is Stop Waiting, Start Living. And I knew two things, right? First of all, my husband would not want me to postpone because he was, really excited about me releasing my first book and everything else. And the second thing is that, again, a choice. Like, I also had something else to focus in on. When the rest of my world was falling apart, I had this one thing, and I didn't know how the book was going to be received or how people were going to respond to the book. And I said, no, I made the decision. I made the choice. It is a collaboration book. So there were 6 other authors, and they were all like, Julie, whatever you need to do. However, we had gauged everything, all our promotions, everything on releasing the book November 17th. And we went full force with it. In the meantime, he got out of the hospital, and he was there to celebrate with me when it went to international bestseller in 3 different countries. And it was probably one of the biggest moments for me because I started crying. I was so emotional that accomplishment had happened, and then he was there to be able to hug me and congratulate me.
Oh.
And we would not have had that moment if I hadn't decided to just keep pushing forward, because when he collapsed, and he was actually he was intubated, and he was in a medical coma for a couple of days because of the seizure. We didn't know. It was kind of touch and go. Like, I was praying that everything was going to be okay. However, had no idea what the outcome was going to be.
There's a lot of energy with that too. You didn't know what the outcome was going to be for your husband, but you had a plan in action that could distract you a little bit, that could lift your spirits, that could bring you the positive energy that you could then give to your husband and the hope thereof. And not similar, but interesting thing, I had the same thing with my sister, who has since passed, but I got a call from my nephew saying my sister was in the hospital, and they didn't think she was going to make it. That was it. And so I called the ER, and my sister married an East Indian. Okay, going back there. And the East Indian family is very large in that area. So all of them were her sisters. So by the time I called from her real blood sister, the ER nurse said, I don't want to talk to you. Talk to her family, find out. So I flew down to Virginia from Maine and saw my sister laying there. They did allow me in, which was very nice. And my sister said, what are you going to tell our parents? What are you going to tell mom? I don't know. I have to sit here and be with you for a little while. I don't know. I don't even know how bad off you are. Yeah, you're sitting here with tubes coming out of you and everything else, but you're talking to me. So we talked for a while, and she kept asking me, what are you going to tell mom? What are you going to tell mom? And finally I said, you know what? I know, because as you say, that decision, that choice, that pause, that energy, I said, I know what I'm going to tell mom, that you had a bad spell and that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And she said, am I? Oh, good. having that choice to believe, it helps you, it helps the people around you feel better. And she did. She lived another 2.5, well, almost 3 years after that.
Well, that's good. And I'm sorry for your loss, because loss is always, very challenging. But you hear stories so many times of people that have really very little hope. In fact, I just heard of a woman's story she shared with me this past weekend, where she was given, 2 years to live. And she's 4 or 5 years past that now, because of the positive mindset of like making the decision and the choice to put herself out there and to do what was ever necessary. Because you look at situations and you look at people who may very well be in the same boat. They both get the same diagnosis. Yet one, lives, pursues life, and has that positive mindset. And the other one just decides to take what is. And, that can really play a role in how things turn out for a lot of people. And I'm glad your sister had another 2.5 years. And I know that it was because you told her she was going to be okay. That was like another validation for her, right?
Yeah, because everyone else is there wringing their hands. Oh no, the tears. And no, that is not helpful. That is not helpful. And indeed, it is I go back to the energy, because I do a lot of energy work. That it really is that importance to know, to feel, to give yourself the strength to be better. Like your friend, who is now 5 years past the time that she could live. Mm-hmm. And, the doctors were saying the same thing about my sister. And I said, no, it just doesn't feel right now. Just doesn't. Mm-mm. So don't do it. And same thing with my husband. He had a heart attack at age 36. And like you, I just focused on other things. And said, no, he's going to be okay. And so what? He's now 75 tomorrow. So yeah.
Well, happy early birthday to him.
Yeah. So it's all good. It's all good. When you make that decision, when you make that choice, when you create that energy of the way you want to look at things. You were talking earlier about the unicorns and rainbows and stuff. And I've had so many people say, Karen, life isn't like that. And as you so well put it, life isn't like that, but we have a choice to look for the good. As Zig Ziglar always said, look for the good.
Well, it is. And it's an awareness factor, because it goes back to, like, have you ever bought yourself like a red car? Like a particular red car, like say, like a red Mustang, right? Yeah. And like you've never noticed red Mustangs before. Now that you have one, all of a sudden you see all these red Mustangs on the road. And it's funny because like I see butterflies all the time around me. And so many people are like, I never see butterflies. Now we could be standing, together, and, I'm seeing all the butterflies and they're not. It's an awareness factor. And again, it's what are you paying attention to? Yeah. And are you paying attention to the positive, looking for the positive, or are you always looking for the negative? Yeah. And if you're looking for the negative, you will find the negative. You will find it. You absolutely will find it. It is all, it is not a subconscious thing keeping you from enjoying life. It is a subconscious thing keeping you safe at all times and helping you find what you're looking for. And if you're looking for the negative, as you say, hey, we will make sure that your day is filled with negativity and unhappiness. You're welcome. Absolutely. So I love what you do and the people that you support with all of your amazing positivity. I just, your energy comes through and I love hanging out with you. And
the title of this podcast is actually called "What's Your Story?" And your story is so profound in so many ways. We're showing our listeners how they don't have to be stuck, but follow, look for the good, look for the things that you can learn, and move on when it gets no longer fun.
Well, that's right. It's all about just continuing to take action. Like, even if you don't know where you're headed, just continue to move forward. I always talk about the fact that, like, if you've ever been in an airplane and you look in a cockpit, I say, what does a cockpit not have? Everybody's like, they joke around and say, oh, I hope it's not a pilot, but it doesn't have a rear view mirror, because when you are piloting a plane, you are moving always forward. Be the pilot in your life and just keep moving forward, whatever that looks like, whatever steps you're taking. Don't question all the time, because hindsight is 2020 for a reason. Like, people make the best decision they can with the information they have at that given point, and just keep moving. You're either growing or you're dying. There is no stagnant. So, don't wither away on the vine. Just keep moving forward.
I love that. Be the pilot of your life. Keep moving forward. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So tell me, how can people find you?
Well, I like to say that I was the only Julie Jones, the one and only. However, to best find this Julie Jones, my website is juliejones.biz, B-I-Z. That's one of the easiest ways to find me. You can connect with me through that. I am on LinkedIn. I'm also on, all social media handles, Instagram, Facebook. On Instagram and Facebook, I'm known as The Adventures of Julie Jones. So you can find me that way as well. I'm not that hard, not that hard usually to find.
And if somebody wanted to work with you, how would they be able to do that?
On my website, there is a contact form. So you can go there, you can book a 30-minute, it's totally free, 30-minute call with me. And I fully know that I'm not everybody's, cup of tea, but you may not also be my right client, but I welcome a 30-minute conversation, because I love to build new relationships, and let's just see if it's a good fit for both of us. And there's a drop down arrow, so you can just say what you want to talk about, because I am a wedding officiant as well. So that's one of the drop down, so if you'd like me to marry you, well, that could be a possibility also.
Oh, I do encourage all of our listeners to take advantage of that, because just hanging out with Julie is amazing. But if anybody can help you see how you can improve your life, how you can grow, how you can experience life to all of the beautiful things around you, she's the lady who can help you do that. So I hope that you'll take advantage of that free offer. And do you have any last words for our listeners before we go?
No, I just am really super passionate about being in the moment. And I guess the biggest thing I like to say is that we were born as human beings, not human doings. So even though life is all about taking action, sometimes just be in the moment and enjoy the experience around you, because it goes fast. It's a fast ride. I don't know. Like I always used to say, my parents and my grandparents used to say, the older you get, the faster it goes. And I used to laugh at that. And now that I'll be 54 this year, I know that they were not kidding. Like they were not kidding at how fast life really does go by. So be in the moment.
And you're never too old to start being in the moment. Never too old.
Nope.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie Jones, the adventure of Julie Jones. Take advantage of that 30-minute call with her, because it is a life changer. Who knows? Who knows? The possibilities are endless. Yes.
Yes, they are. Thank you so much, Karen, for having me on today.
Thank you, Julie. It's been a total pleasure. Until next time.